All right, back inside the Pirate Radio studios here on a Wednesday afternoon, talking Pirate football with Roy Tesh. So we'll talk about the defensive side of the ball, get to know Coach Tesh a little bit. But, Coach, we appreciate your time. How you doing today?
Doing well. Appreciate you guys having me in here.
Yeah, we just had, Mr. Energy on the offensive side, Dyrell Roberts, on the show on Tuesday, and I understand you bring quite a bit of energy on the defensive side.
I got to follow that up.
From what I've heard, you'll do a fine job with that. But, Coach, I don't know, kind of catch us up to where we are in this offseason, this period right now. Just finished the OTA portion with the coaches, correct? And now the players are kind of doing their own thing. But how have you seen the progress this offseason?
Right now that's exactly where we're at. The coaches are kind of stepping back a little bit, and the players are jumping in there, still continuing to do the things that they've been doing, but doing it a little bit more player-led as they go through. I think they've done a really good job of really stepping up to the plate, taking a leadership role. Every position seems to have guys that are stepping into that to be able to help them continue to hone their skills as we get closer to camp. So I think they're in a pretty good place right now, and they're going to continue to move forward.
You've got a group that has a lot of veterans there with the D-line, the defensive tackles. So do you have many worries about them getting their work in when you're not there?
I'm a coach. I worry about everything. It never ends, the worrying aspect of things. But it's great to have older guys in the room that have been through, listening to Surad and Deontay and Elijah talk. That would be the first thing they would tell you is we've been through a lot, so we've seen how to do things. We've seen how not to do things. So for them to be in there and helping lead some of the younger guys through OTAs and really through the game of football. I was joking around with them the other day. It was fun for me. I've got a recruit on campus the other day, and practice is over, and I stepped back out of the line to talk to that young man and answer any questions that he had out there. And I could hear my guys mimicking me and making fun of me behind my back over there. So to hear some of those things and then also have them go over and coach up some of the young kids like Sam Riddy. We've got guys trying to get him in a little bit better stance out there. Just the fact that they'll reach out and help each other just speaks to who they are as people and speak to where the room will go as it moves forward.
I was talking to you before we went on and just commending I guess you guys for bringing these players in, but some really cool people, nice people. I've enjoyed talking to them this summer, and some of those right there on your D-line with Deontay and, of course, Elijah Morris. You said that you like seeing these guys kind of grow up as men, right, when you coach them for 3-4 years?
Yes, sir, and they've come a long way. I think we were joking around. Elijah was like talking to that wall over there when he first got here. Now he's a very, very outspoken young man, and it's great when you have guys like that who are doing things right as well, because players on the roster tend to gravitate to the guys that are having success, and when they're doing the right things, that makes your program grow. Also in recruiting those guys, I think that's one thing from a Mike Houston football program, character. Right? Get to know the young man. What kind of young man is he? Because like-minded people achieve like-minded goals. If you want winners in your football program, then you've got to recruit them. And who better to know that than the players you already have here?
Roy Tesh joining us, Pirate Radio Studios. A-Harp here as well.
Yes,
Alex?
sir. Coach Tesh, the D-line is an experienced group, but are there any young guys that are sticking out to you right now through spring ball in the summertime?
Yes, sir. We've got some younger guys in that room that you might not have heard of, but really had a really good spring. Zion Wilson came back. He was a D lineman to start with, moonlighted as an offensive lineman over there, and we got the opportunity to get him back in the room and really had a good spring for us in there. We've got Preston Carr, who's been in the D-ends room and transitioned inside a little bit, who had a good spring. There's a couple of other young freshman guys. We've moved some other guys around in that position on defense too, because there's some similarity between what Coach Zachary coaches at defensive end, field end, and what we do at we call it boundary end half the time, but it's defensive tackle. Just the similarities in what they have to do there. So we've had some guys have some really, really high up bright spots, and they've got, like we talked about, just got done talking about, they've got really experienced older guys to learn from as well. It's going to be invaluable to them.
When you got a guy like Zion then you see the position changes all the time in college football, but how are those created? Is that coming from you and the position coaches? Is it the head coach? Is it the player sometimes? I guess it's a mixed bag.
Every case is different.
Yeah.
And for Zion, he flashed. He was with me to start with in the defensive tackles room, and he flashed being a good football player early. And so, there was an opportunity possibly to get him on the field faster. Right. So that's one scenario. It may be that you grow out of a position, or your body changes, because young guys, when you recruit them, you don't know what they're going to be. I get asked this question all the time recruiting: how big does he have to be? Big enough and be able to run. For a guy like Sam Riddy, who was 235 pounds when we were recruiting him, and now he's like 295. I mean, sometimes you just grow into a different position. So there's a million things that go into it. But you got to keep communication lines open, and Coach Houston's always trying to find a way to help the football team, right? What can we better do to help a guy get on the field earlier, but also to help the football team?
If you got a question for Coach Tesh, you can get it in on YouTube. Robert's got one. Are there specific pass or run techniques you teach, or is it more what techniques fit the ability of each player?
There are fundamentals. I worked for several really, really good head coaches throughout my career, and Coach Fred Goldsmith a long time ago told me fundamentals don't change. So there's certain things up front that we teach. We're a big hip explosion team when we're talking about defeating blocks and taking on blocks, and that's allowed us over the years to take a guy who may not be as big as the offensive lineman and be able to knock him back at the point of contact. So a little bit different. There's two avenues to it. Some people are big time 6-inch power steps and all that stuff. And we've always talked about hips and explosion at the line of scrimmage. Do a lot of run fundamentals first. If you can stop the run, then you can create opportunities to rush the passer. So it stops we've been throughout the years. That's been invaluable to us as well. So I would say, yeah, there's some similarities between us and some teams, but there's some big differences in what we teach, and we've had success doing it. Not that that's the way you have to do it, but it's worked for us over the years, and it fits our philosophy.
Coach, the defense has had a lot of success under Coach Blake Harrell, and you're a big part of that. How do you balance staying with what you guys have taught in the past that has worked for you, while also kind of updating your schemes and your techniques for the upcoming season?
Blake Harrell's an innovator and probably one of the brightest young defensive coordinators in the country, and so to be able to be in a room with him is great. I think that we've all worked together, him, myself, and Coach Houston, for a long time, so he understands what Coach Houston wants before he has to be told, and that's always – and I'm the same way with Coach Harrell. And we'll joke around a lot, too, as he's starting to branch out and do some of the unique things that we do. There used to be an old YouTube thing. It was this caveman. They were like, can you make this knife out of this rock or whatever? And he'd say, yeah. So now Coach Harrell will come in and say, can we do this? Yeah, we can do it. And once you teach you guys the fundamentals, there's a lot of things you can do. And the guys love getting in there with the captain of chaos and turning it loose.
Heard that name quite a bit this offseason.
Yeah, I'm not sure he likes it as much as we like it.
Roy Tesh joining us. Coach, I remember when Ruff and McNeil, Coach Ruff, got here in 2010. Lincoln Riley comes in to run the offense, and I looked at the coaches, and it said inside receivers coach and outside receivers coach. That was the first time I ever saw that. It's probably been going around a lot longer than that, especially with the Mike Leach tree and everything. But with defensive tackles specifically, and then there's another coach looking at ends, and then there's outside linebackers inside. Has that always been that way your entire career, where it gets specific like that, just coaching the tackles?
No, I've had all four up front. Now, I've coached a lot of things in my career. I've been a running backs coach in the triple option. I've coached linebackers, all of them across the board. I've coached the front. I was joking around with Jack Powers that I coached the secondary for about a week. And it doesn't fit my personality, but it's evolved a little bit, and it helps at times. There's certain techniques that are unique to the defensive tackles. Mm-hmm. For example, we play a lot of two-gap stuff in our odd fronts, which the ends do not do. But the hand-down field end is going to be more similar to our guy in the boundary defensive tackle than the rush is, who's a stand-up guy. And Coach Zachary has both of those. So it allows us to really focus in on one position, but it also allows us to say, hey, let's send the end over here to work with you on this. and let me take the rush over here and work on pass drops.
Yeah, I was going to ask because you always hear about offensive line communication. You need all those guys to be one. Same with your tackles and ends and everything too, right? So everything's got to come together.
Well, we tend to be good soldiers in the middle. Y'all tell us what to do, we'll do it.
What'd you say? You tell your guys one word, they kind of know what to do.
They'll figure it out from there. Give them a buzzword. They'll figure it out from there.
You've kind of touched on it, but just really a fun room. I guess headlined by Deontay Johnson, but a lot of smiles. I got a feeling just from stories I've heard, you can turn that smile upside down if you need to, maybe.
With Deontay?
Yeah.
Definitely. He smiles outside the lines and whistles, and when it's time to work, he works.
Yeah.
And that's really what you want. You want a young man who's going to be what he needs to be on the field, because football's an emotional game, and you got to play it with passion. But also to have a young man that is the way he is off of the field, is a magnetic personality, and when you do things right and people start tending to gravitate towards you, that's a great thing to have as a leadership guy. So and what you see is what you get. He's not any different. When you see him smiling, he's smiling, and when I see him frowning, he's frowning.
Alex told a story about getting chewed out by Steve Shankweiler years ago, and the funny part was Alex will never forget it. Steve Shankweiler doesn't even remember it happening, so because he's had so many of those incidents. So we've asked guys, who's the biggest chewer outer on the team, and your name comes up top of the list quite a bit. So congratulations for that.
Well, yeah.
But Alex said that it's one of the, everybody respects you, and Alex, what did you say that Coach Tesh will give you the biggest tongue lashing, but also he's your guy, right?
Yeah, you've been one of the biggest support guys off the field, and a guy that players have a lot of trust in and can talk to about off the field stuff. So a lot of guys have respect for you for that.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, but I respect them as players, and for them to show up to work every day and do what they do, that means a lot to us coaches, for those guys, because college football is not an easy deal, right? There's things when all these guys tweet out blessed to receive and offer, they didn't know they were signing up for the study halls, the 6 a.m. weights, and having to be at your tip top every day when you come in, and it's hard, and those guys push through it every day, and I appreciate them, and it means a little bit to hear that they appreciate me as well. So
yeah, and you've got to be a good communicator, I guess, and know how to handle, because you can't treat everybody the same too. I've talked to a lot of coaches about that. Everybody's an individual. So I'm sure you've gotten better at that over the years. Did that take a while, I guess, for you to connect with the players? You always had that?
Well, every player's different. You got to build a relationship with every player.
Each one, yeah.
And I've been blessed to be around some really good people, not only just coaches. I've been around guys who've been the National Coach of the Year, worked for a couple of them, but been around really good people. And to learn from those guys on a daily basis how to treat your players. There's been some times I get the coveted, explosive coach for a reason. And there's been some times where I've had a coach that I've been working for come over, put his arm around me, and coach me up as well.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm just blessed to be a part of what we've got going on and the locker room culture that we have, and glad to be, attempting to hold up my end of it.
All right, Robert, getting in the weeds here. What % do you use stunts and twists, or are you more hold your gap?
If you watch our tape, you would say base defense is running around like a chicken with your head cut off. So, now we move a good bit up front. We'll play base defense. Situation dictates it. Obviously, call what Coach Harrell's trying to accomplish. We're just playing our role. There's a lot of things that go into why we're moving and why we're not. It meshes up with the back end more than anything else. But I would say if we had to put a percentage on it, we're moving most of the time.
Coach, you mentioned an offensive background in an option offense, and since this staff has arrived, the defense has looked great against Navy, and throw Army in the mix this year. If we could just score some points against them, we'd win some games here and there. But as far as as that goes, how much does it help you being on the other side of that, knowing how to defend that option and tell your guys what to do?
I think it's obviously positives, understanding. Now, the thing you got to understand about the option is that those guys do a great job of running that offense, so they're always evolving as well. But having a baseline of it will help. The hardest thing when you're defending the option is mimicking and preparing for it. So you can know exactly what they're going to do for the most part and still have a hard time replicating it in practice. But to be around Coach Harrell, who's always thinking outside of the box and evolving as he defends everything, not just the option, is helpful as well. So I think, it helps, but fundamentals don't change, like Coach Goldsmith told me a long time ago, and you keep moving forward.
Mentioned mimicking that offense. Let's shout out the scout team, guys. Haven't done that in a while.
Always shout out to those guys. And they're some of the most unselfish people that you will ever be around. And it's hard not only to be the best player on your team in high school, because everybody here was.
Right.
And we forget that. Everybody here was the best player on their team in high school for the most part, or at least upper echelon, top 2, 3. But to come in and be able to jump into a role of helping, just help the team, right? Be a part of something bigger than myself, invaluable. And those guys, we try to help those guys and remind them every day, hey, look, what you're doing is awesome. So,
you've been with Coach Houston for a long time. Can you touch on your relationship with him and how you guys have built trust in each other over the years?
Yeah, we've been together so long I ran out of fingers. I can't remember how many years it was. We met a long time ago. Coach Houston was a high school coach at T.C. Robertson High School and took a job at Brevard College where I was the defensive line coach and he was the defensive coordinator. And we've kind of worked through from there. Here's the thing I tell you. He's got a really high winning percentage. He was a great defensive coordinator, a good safeties coach, and he's been a phenomenal guy between the lines and whistles. He's probably a better person off the field than he is a football coach, and that's saying a lot, right, for a man with a national championship ring in the box. So I think it's easier to function when you're working with people you trust. And I don't have a doubt that Coach Houston has the best intent for his players, for his coaches, and that comes from about 15, 16 years of just seeing it in person. So I think I'd consider him a friend, and obviously he's my boss. But when you have somebody like that you trust, it makes working for him a heck of a lot easier. That's for sure.
Roy Tesh joining us. Coach, I've commended all the players I've talked to and coaches as well about sticking together last year in a tough year, a bad year record-wise at 2-10, and a year where you feel like, I'll say it for myself, I felt like we had a defense that deserved to win 7-8 games last year, at least, the way they played. But from the outside looking in, everybody kind of stuck together. I think that's going to pay dividends moving forward. But how tough was it for you? I remember asking Coach Harrell about it at a press conference later in the year about, hey, man, if you could, just get another touchdown or two, y'all would win these games. And he said, how many times did Holden Ahlers and Keaton Mitchell and Donnie bail us out when we needed them to? So the team part of it really showed up last year. And hey, credit to you guys for sticking together. And again, can that pay off this year that you went through that?
Well, I think from hard times come new beginnings and new opportunities. And I would agree 100% with Coach Harrell. There were times where, Holden Ahlers would just go bail us out of all kinds of problems. And I can name the games off the top of my head. It don't take me long to go fire away with them, and Keaton and those guys. And as a guy in the locker room, I think that you got to be a thumb pointer. You can't ever be a finger pointer. And what I mean by that is we might have success, but we got to do more, right? What can we do to help get us where we need to be? And I think that's been the mindset in the offseason for all the young men in the locker room. Obviously, I work directly with the defensive front. That's been their mentality, but I really think that they're pushing forward, and that's spreading like wildfire through that locker room. I think it's always been there, but it's really, like you said, now you go through something tough, you want to get out of it. And so I think those guys have been motivated to do that this spring.
Alex, got any more football questions for Coach Tesh?
I think I'm good on football questions.
Robert says, one more. Do you guys have to be able to play multiple technique positions, or do you have one tech, 3 tech guys?
No, we play multiple.
Yeah.
So we're field and boundary-based defense. So that field end's got to play a 3 technique, 5 technique. Our nose guard has to play most of the time 0, A-gap, which is a shade or a 2-eye, a little bit of 2 technique, head up on the guard. The boundary end's got to play a lot. He's got to play in the A-gap, shade, 2-eye, true 2-gap, as a 2 technique, 3 technique off the edge, and has to play 5 technique as well. And then Coach Harrell will get a marker in his hand, and the next thing I know, it will be out. The nose guard will be in a 5 technique, and the boundary end will be out there in a B gap on the same side. So, you've got to be multiple as you go through this, and we try to give them rules and then let those rules bleed into everything they do.
Well, Coach, when you get away from football, what do you enjoy doing? You got any hobbies?
Hobbies besides football. I love to fish, and I equate it to golfing. You'll hear guys talk about how good they are at golf, and they're not very good. You'll hear stories that I'm a good fisherman. Hey, I'll drown a hook with the best of them, right? But I don't know that I'm great at it, but I love to go do it.
Yeah. Have you and Coach Powell gone yet? I know
we have.
Yeah.
And now Coach Powell is the opposite of what I just said. He is a phenomenal fisherman. I saw the man catch a fish. He set the hook on a bass, didn't reel the reel, and the bass wound up on the deck of the boat. I've never seen that before in my life. Never reeled it one time, just yanked it right out of the water on the deck.
I'm glad to hear that you guys actually caught fish, because I went with them, and it was a 3-hour boat ride. We didn't catch a single thing.
You're bad luck.
I guess
you're not
so.
coming with us.
Good deal. So you get a little bit of time off, in July, right?
Yep.
To recharge before
Yes,
it's full systems go. But it's year round, man. I'll ask you too. The portal, the NIL, all that stuff. You seem like you haven't lost your passion for coaching. Has it changed? How different is it now than 5-6 years ago?
But I think the thing that's made us successful, the brotherhood, the togetherness, is kind of the portal makes that hard, right? So to have what we have in the locker room makes that special, and for us to be able to get some guys out of the portal that fit the locker room makes that really special, and I think we've done a good job of that. I can speak intelligently about the one that I have in the room in Jaden McKenzie, and from Raleigh originally, and went to another school, came here, transferred in, and the guys the other day said it feels like he's been here the whole time. So a testament to that. The landscape is changing, and whether you like it or not, you've got to learn how to deal with it and evolve. So whatever that looks like moving forward, we'll continue to do that, and we joke around all the time in the D tackles room. Yeah, fun spelled W-I-N, right? So that's what we're going to be focused on, and that's where we're trying to push moving forward.
All right. Where are you from originally?
Mebane, North Carolina.
Okay.
If you run out of gas between Greensboro and Chapel Hill, that's where you're going to go.
That's where you go. Okay.
When I was they got an outlet mall now. When I was growing up, we didn't have that. That was a golf course.
I know it's tough for you coaches. I still remember asking Donnie Kirkpatrick when I first kind of got here at Pirate Radio and interviewing and stuff when he was on Skip's staff. I found out he was a Washington fan, Redskins fan. So I was like, hey, Coach, you see the game? And then I quickly realized he didn't have time to watch any games during the football season and hadn't watched the game since like Joe Theismann played or whatever. So are you a sports fan, a football fan?
Actually, a Redskins fan or Commanders or whatever we are now. We can't figure out what our mascot is. So when I was growing up, you didn't have the Panthers. You had
That's
Atlanta,
how it was.
you had Washington, and my grandfather would take the pilgrimage to RFK Stadium every year, and so I became a Washington fan.
Well, it's a good thing you can't watch them now. I wish I was in your shoes.
You know what? Sometimes it is. I watch more NFL tape from on our computer screens than I get to watch in person.
Good deal. And always another hobby of yours is running, right? Or walking, jogging. I see you and Coach Harrell.
I don't know if that's a hobby so much as it is a necessity. And
you guys are all over town, though.
You better run fast if you're going to keep up with Coach Harrell now. He can move.
So is that like all the coaches, like you guys just collectively decide to do that, or is that like mandated from Coach Houston that all you guys work out? Because I see you guys running every single day and going to the gym. You might be the hardest working coaching staff in the country.
Well, it's not mandated, but it's probably
encouraged.
And if we're going to expect you guys to go flying around the practice field and play like your hair's on fire, then I've got to be able to keep up, right?
Right.
So I've got to go make sure that I'm somewhat in shape to be able to coach at the level that you guys are playing at. Now, there's also no windows in the defensive staff room, so we're trying to get out of the submarine too. There's some of that.
The submarine. There you go. Well, Coach Tesh, we'll let you run. We appreciate you joining us today. Good luck this season. We'll catch up with you probably on Media Day, but have a good rest of your summer, and can't wait for the fall, man.
I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. All right, we'll be back with you live coming up 3 o'clock on Pirate Radio Live. Speaking of an option offense, we'll do our opponent preview for Navy. Talk to Pete Medhurst today and see what's going on with the midshipmen. Got that and more coming up 3 o'clock on Pirate Radio Live.